to retain the old ones. And so I'm sensing a little conflict between there are no new meters available and new meters are cheaper to purchase, calibrated and ready to install than to retain the old ones. So I think that's a detail we need to be clear about.
Can I?
Well, go ahead.
Okay. In the event of an option where it includes a new meter, not the smart meter, our preferred path would be a new digital meter, rather than trying to secure analog meters for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So we do think that those are readily available from the suppliers we already purchased from, qualified suppliers, and their meters meet all specs. So we do think there's options, but the mechanical one is the one fraught with issues.
So when you say new meter, that's a new non-communicating digital meter?
That's right.
And do you have an idea of the cost of that?
We think it's in the $20 to $40 range, loaded with the cost to get it into service.
And Tom, just to clarify, because it was SDG&E, we were looking at roughly around 4,000 meters. We could probably go out and get 4,000 new, not remanufactured electromechanical meters at this time. We've also looked at the possibility of getting remanufactured, recertified electromechanical meters. And our volumes are very low, and so we thought that it would be much better to do that than to warehouse the meters. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
One, just real quick on the analog meter versus the the digital new meter with a radio off, or if it doesn't have a radio at all. Would the digital meter be a time of use measuring device though, as opposed to the analog, which just does the monthly read? And that's one question.
It could be. I mean, we use digital meters today for time of use.
And they would track time of use. Okay. And then the other question is with the radio off option, if you had mentioned that you might need to put in repeater transmitters within a neighborhood. Do you know what the threshold is, a ballpark of, let's say, a cluster of 10 homes opt out? When would you need to put a repeater in? And can see that this could open a whole other can of worms if you're putting these on utility poles of someone who opt out, and all of a sudden now they have a repeater right outside their bedroom window on a utility pole. That seems to be problematic. But do you know what the threshold is of where you would need to put a repeater in?
Well, we don't know. We can make estimates. I mean, the pole top devices we're talking about do go on utility assets, generally speaking, not close to residences, but through utility rights-of-ways. My cost estimate I submitted in our application was that I could need as many as 15,000 of these new repeaters for 145,000 electric meter radio ops. So something close to 10 to 1.
And do you know what the power levels of those repeaters would be?
I'll defer to Don Reeves from Silver Spring.
Yeah, Don Reeves. So the power levels of all of our devices are the same. So we operate within the ISM band, the 902 to 928, completely compliant with all FCC regulations. It's a 1 watt device.
Would it be pretty much the exact as just having a smart meter on that one pole servicing those 10 houses?
That's correct.
Okay, wait, before we go, there is one comment that we received by email.
Michael Shames from UCAM. Not a specific question as much as an observation. It was my understanding that the IOUs were going to have actual cost data for the scenarios that advocates presented to them and sent to the ALJ last month. So far, I'm hearing PG&E doesn't have the costs. I know that SDG&E has the actual costs, and I'm hoping that we can call upon SDG&E to be more forthcoming with the actual costs for scenarios that you can turn and others presented. SDG&E, did you want to comment on that?
We really appreciate Michael's comments. Yeah, we do have costs of the we do have costs of the various ranges, and it does vary a little bit based on the amount of people that opt out. Really not that much. The majority of the costs, at least the way we're looking at it, is variable and are in somewhat the same ranges that PG&E has already talked about. We're looking, PG&E has come out with a number of $20, and depending on how many people opt out or don't opt out, it could be 10 to 15% either way of that number. And the same for the upfront costs. I think PG&E is proposing both a front end and a backup charge. We are looking at the possibility of that might being an all upfront charge, but our numbers are not significantly different from PG&E.
Just by the way, I do have cost estimates for the 3 options the ALJ asked us to bring.
Okay, and we'll go through that in a minute.
Another question from this one is from the County of Lake for PG&E. Would a remote radio off option would be more costly than manual radio off option that incorporates an initial field visit? I'll read it again. Would a remote radio off option be more costly than a manual radio off option that incorporates an initial field visit?
It seems logical that a remote radio off would be less expensive, perhaps even with the development costs Don talked about earlier. I have to remind people I have electric and gas meters, and I cannot remotely develop a system to turn off the gas module simultaneous to the electric. So, and again, we like the idea of what the field visit can do to physically identify the location as being a radio off. Available through the remote version.
I just have a follow-up on the remote turn-off. Could San Diego and Edison also address the feasibility of doing remote turn-off on their meters?
I'm going to ask Itron to answer that question. To my knowledge, the way the system works right now is similar to Silver Springs. We cannot do it. There is development cost. I don't know if there is an option to be able to remotely turn the radio back on because it's off, but I'd like somebody from Itron to answer that.
Yeah, so today we cannot turn the radio off through the head end. And then once the radio is off, there is no ability there's no radio to pick up the transmission, so it can't be turned back on.
So that would mean, and I don't know how Silver Springs work, but you have to roll a truck to turn the radio back on. Just because it's off, it's not listening. There's no way to communicate it to say, hey, I want you to wake back up and turn back on.
Okay, wait. Over here.
Let me just go ahead and answer that question then. So the SSN radio, we can independently turn on and off the transmitter and the receiver. So we can actually turn the transmitter off, cease all emissions, but actually still listen for commands that allow us to turn the radio back on. So we do have that capability.
Hi, Jim. My name is Larry Bragman. I'm with the town of Fairfax. A couple questions. We have a solar system at our house. To my knowledge, there is no remote reading of that system. It's a net meter. There's no cost charged to us, as far as I know, to have a meter reader come out and read that. And I'm just wondering, why would customers who want to opt out have to pay an additional cost when solar customers like us don't? And then my second question is, as far as self-reporting, it seems to me that the use of, we can do better than using a card and putting it in a window. Have you considered email self-reporting? Have you considered putting a data slot on the meter so that the customer could take out a data card, install the data card in their computer? All the data would be directly transmitted to the utility electronically. It would be self-reporting, much more efficient, no transmission problems, and everybody, it's kind of a win-win. Thank you.
Your first question about net metering. So you would be still manually meter read, by the way, because we expect our systems to be able to do net metering in smart meters this November. All of our meters are today capable of net reading, but we just haven't put in the billing end of it so that we can build a net meter. And once we do, we expect to change out all the meters currently for solar customers to a net smart meter. So you sort of know it or not, you do pay for meter reading today because we count our cost of meter reading. It goes into our general rate cases, and we count part of the cost of services Ms. Brown spoke about earlier. So under the smart meter system, our costs go down, and they don't need to be considered in rates to come. So if we have to put meter readers back in one of these opt-out scenarios that we're talking about today, that would be new incremental cost for PG&E to recover.
And what about electronic self-reporting?
I didn't look at that specifically. I mean, the way you just described is something I can see would be very different customer by customer and their ability and capabilities to do that. We, of course, like to develop programs that everybody can do and follow and don't need any particular technical capability or devices. Or else you're expecting a lot out of your customers to have all those abilities.
So I do know you're really talking about putting an expansion slot into the meter. There's some real difficulties with that because of the environment the meter is in, the testing, everything. It's not a new idea, but I know people have looked at it and just found it not to be feasible because of the environment the meter is in, rain, etc.
Good morning, David Willner Associates. I have a question. I have two questions, please. First, I'd like to thank all the representatives from the utilities and the smart meter manufacturers for being here to answer our questions today. The first question I have, the gentleman from Silver Springs said that the output power was 1 watt from the smart meter. If I understood him correctly, I've taken the liberty of checking with the Federal Communications Commission, and that's not a true statement, so I'd like to get it straight. The output power, effective radiated power of the smart meter is 2 watts.
Okay, are you asking a specific question?
I'm making a statement and a question at the same time. So I'd like the answer to be correct, and that should be 2 watts, and the gentleman can disagree if he wishes. The implication, of course, is there's 8 million smart meters out there, and this 1 watt would be 8 million watts of power that we're getting saturated with. If the answer is 2 watts, then it's 16 million watts of power that we're being saturated. So what is the correct answer, please?
Yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not an RF engineer, to the best of my knowledge, we are transmitting at 1 watt, not 2 watts. The FCC limit is 1 watt. Also, just to address your other supposition that there is emissions of 8 million meters times 1 watt, all the devices are not transmitting, obviously, at the same time. So again, I believe Jim Meadows from PG&E stated that On average, our devices are transmitting 45 seconds per day, so that is indeed the correct figure based upon all the analysis that we've done.
Hey, Don, do you want to mention the FCC license or certificate that you do have for your product as well?
Yeah, of course, all of our products are fully FCC licensed, tested in an independent lab, have been verified independently, not only by PG&E, but by every other utility with whom we do business.
Okay, I think we're at if I may please follow up. I think we're at a very important point now in this workshop and in this entire proceeding. I am familiar with engineering, and I am familiar with the manner in which your equipment is type accepted by the Federal Communications Commission. And as I said, I took the liberty of actually checking with them and getting a copy of Silver Spring certification. The smart meter is equipped with a 3 dB antenna. And from an engineering point of view, if you have 1 watt conductivity antenna,
Mr.
let me
Wilder,
finish,
please
please. I
cover
can't
this.
keep my train of thought.
Mr. Wilder,
Your Honor,
please
please,
finish,
let's be fair. Let's be fair. Now, I'd like to listen to everybody's point of view. But you have an audience of people here listening at a public hearing. And,
Okay,
and wait a minute, let me finish, please.
where
Let
I need to
me
make
finish,
sure.
please. No,
Excuse me,
I would like to
Mr.
finish my statement. I'd like to take my turn. I did check
Mr.
with,
Wilder.
don't put your hand in front of me, please. I
Mr.
did
Wilder,
check with the
I'm going to
Federal
ask you to stop.
Communications Commission. I'm not going to
Okay.
stop until I finish my statement.
Okay.
You cannot force us
Mr.
into... Look, if it's...
This
microphone, Mr. Wilder.
a proceeding where
I
I
know what
am
the...
running the
Is this
proceeding.
on or off?
If you wish
I'm
to
not
speak
gonna give it up. Is
something,
it on or off?
you may
It's
say it
on.
later on. But this is
Don't you
outside
think
of the
the people
scope.
here today have a right to
Whether
know
or
the
not
truth?
we want
I
Mr.
think the people want to hear the truth. I really do think they
Everyone.
want to hear the truth, and I think that each
Mr.
of us
Wilder,
can write
I
this
would like to
down.
ask you to please.
I'll be out of here in a minute, I'm
No,
sure, with the sheriff, but let me finish. Please, each one of you, write
Mr.
down 2 watts. That's the output from the smart
Okay,
meter.
Mr.
I'll back it up with FCC documentation by email to anybody who would like to have a copy of that. And let's take it one
Mr.
step
Wilder.
further. Some of the meters are actually 4 watts.
Is there some way for us to
to
terminate the webcast at this point? I'm going to shut down this workshop.
Well, you can shut it down then, because the people have to know the truth. If we're not going to get
Okay,
the truth, then we're not going to continue.
It is
I'll
not
give you the mic when I'm done
material
talking.
scope of this proceeding. Mr. Wilder, please.
I'm very sorry. Why do we have to be muted on an important point?
Yes. Okay, whether or not.
Utilities brought up the issue.
Okay,
He made the statement. I didn't volunteer the statement. He made the statement. This is Rule 1 of the Public Utilities Commission's practice and procedure require that every statement that's made here is true. That's a rule. That's a statutory rule.
Wilder, if you feel
If
that
he
has
made a
violated-
mistake,
if you feel
I
there's
know,
a
file a
violation
complaint. The gentleman
of
can
rule
correct
of these-
himself. He is an engineer, presumably. I'm sure he can correct himself. I'll ask again, then I'll be quiet. Please, each of you, check what I'm saying. It's 2 watts per meter for the Landis-Geyer meter with a Silver Spring module in it, and I'll confirm it by email to anybody in California that's interested. Thank you.
Are you planning to read a statement, or are you asking a question?
I'm taking notes and I have notes to read from.
No.
I can't read from my own notes. I've been taking while I'm here. I mean, it's relevant to my question. I've been writing down what I want to ask.
Okay, why don't you just ask your question?
Okay. I don't know why you've asked that. My name is Angela Flynn. I'm a PG&E customer. I'm wondering, my understanding from people I have spoken to, because I don't have a smart meter where I live, is that they have been told by PG&E that the system is not activated. What I would think that would mean is that these meters are not putting out a radio signal yet. However, out of the 40 meters I have tested with my detector, only 3 were not putting out a signal, and the other 37 were putting out radiation at very high levels continuously. Well, the point of my question is, we have been told that it would be a cost for them to come and deactivate the radio. However, people are being told that the radio is not on. So wouldn't the true cost be to come and activate the radio rather than to deactivate it? If that is true, what people are being told?
Okay, what is the current status of the meters? Why don't we go from there?
Well, for PG&E, when we install electric meters, the radio is in fact on at the installation. The home area network radio which is a Zigbee-based radio to engage with home management devices, is turned off, but the network radio Dawn talked about a minute ago in the ISM band is on when the meters are installed. Similar for our gas modules, when they are installed, they are turned on and activated at the point of installation.
Thank you. All right, go ahead. Marcia has another
Question from Michael Shames. SDG&E and Itron just stated a few minutes ago that currently the meters can't be turned off. They didn't indicate what, if anything, it costs to create that functionality. But more importantly, they don't need to turn the meters on and off. They have the ability to program the meter's internal clock to send transmissions at certain times of the month, creating the functionality of a turnout. I'd like SDG&E and Itron to address that scenario.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Itron to ask it because I don't think what Michael is stating, we don't have the ability to turn the radio off so it won't transmit. So.
Yeah, that's correct, Ted. It's Mark from Itron. We cannot do that today.
So you cannot turn off the smart meter?
From remotely, we cannot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what Michael's question is that we have the ability to schedule reads, and so if we just don't schedule reads or say that it's going to happen once a month, we could turn, that would only make it communicate once a month, and I don't think the system is designed to be able to do that.
Correct. Plus, since it's a mesh network, there's communications, alerts, alarms, and the data that comes from neighboring meters or gas meters, which go through that radio. So the radio is always on, and it would transmit data up. So just a direct, what we would call a direct read request. That's just one application of what the radio is used for in the mesh network.
Right.
Okay, I would like to move on to the next topic, which is the appropriate opt-out range and what should be offered for residents in multi-unit residences. And there were quite a number of recommendations and proposals concerning the appropriate opt-out range. The County of Lake has discussed, and I believe, Mr. Tobin, you have, your parties have also done this, is to have municipal entities, whether they be local governments, local jurisdictions, have the ability to opt out. And I'm looking at two areas. One is the multifamily residences, and if we do talk about the municipal entities, what is the feasibility of doing that, and what type of process would need to be done in those instances. So can we talk about some, for multi-unit residences right now, from what I had understood, it is only the account holder who, and that is true for all of you, that only the account holder may do the opt-out. So if there is an apartment with a master meter, it is only that person who can make a request. Is that correct? Okay. What I'd like to ask, Mr. Tobin, could you expand a little more on what had been recommended by your proposal?
Sure. Thank you. My name is Jim Tobin, representing some counties and towns on this issue. I think you've accurately described what the proposal would be.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. I think the judge has accurately described the proposal. I think the question of how it could be worked out is something we should include hearing the utilities' responses about. In general, I think it is our point of view that the need for that is premised on the wireless mesh network technology that has been selected because of the sort of impact on a neighbor of another neighbor's choice to opt in or out. And it's driven by that technological network design that drives you to the question of a broader opt-out possibility. In terms of expanding how that would work, I think you have asked in the past a question, for example, about what about the person who lives in, let's take the example of the town of Fairfax, which, let's say, hypothetically opted out, but wants a smart meter. We think there are alternatives for that, but it looks from the agenda like those can be discussed under the wired options. So we are not proposing, if I could just clarify maybe, we're not proposing that if a municipality or a governmental entity opts out, that everyone within that entity's jurisdiction would not have the ability to have a smart meter of an appropriate kind, presumably non-EMF emitting, and participate in the various time of day rate programs, et cetera, that they might feel is a benefit. But I think that's enough for right now.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Martino, I know your organization had also made, some comments on this, and what I'd like to know is, you've proposed, your opt-out option proposes someone who wishes to opt out within a multi-unit residence for any reason. One individual would be opting out. It would apply to everybody at least that's how I had read your proposal. Is that correct? That as long as one person in a multi-unit residence would request to opt out, then that opt-out should be applied to everybody. Is that correct in what you're proposing?
It's a little bit more complex than that. What I proposed was that if somebody did not want a smart meter in a multi-resident unit, that there would be no smart meters installed there at first, that the people of the multi-resident unit would get together and talk about this and want the smart meters really represented. And if somebody then, after getting all the information that they could about it, wanted a smart meter, then there would have to be some kind of arrangement made for a safety zone, such as was mentioned earlier, around their meter. And if they opted out according to a radio off option, that a filter would have to be put on their line to rid it of the disruptive effects of the power switching unit in the smart meter. But basically, my proposal was that if there is a multi-resident unit, or multi-unit residence, that there be no smart meters installed if one person did not want it, and then the people in that whole residence would have to get together and discuss how they would deal with, or arrange among themselves with respect to smart meters on the basis of full information and full awareness of what they're doing.
Okay, so in terms of the resident who wishes to have a smart meter in a multi-unit residence where everyone is said to opt out, you had said that it would have to be done through a fiber optic connection and then a filter. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Are those feasible at that time? I know we're going into the wired options, and I know that there were some discussions about whether or not fiber optic is there, and I would like to get some more discussion on that.
Okay, I'll try this one. SDG&E has looked at a wired option. It is not a fiber optic option. It's a telephone line option. And part of the difficulty, and really when you look at the fiber optic option, first, you're requiring that customer does have broadband, and then connecting. I think there's a perception that broadband is ubiquitous and it's throughout the home. You somehow have to get a physical connection between either the router or the modem and that meter, and that's where the majority of the expense is. Also, for a phone line option, it's the same way. It would be for security reasons and others. For SDG&E, it would be some sort of a dedicated phone line, and that's a little bit older technology and costly than sending a meter reader out to the house.
Thank you. All right. I just wanted to ask Mr. Weil a question also. And Mr. Weil, you had also said that, or I had said that, you know, customers in multi-unit dwellings should be provided the option to opt out. And there was a statement in there that that if they did have meters with, you know, if somebody did wish to have a smart meter within what you were considering the appropriate, you know, the range, whatever the range is, that they would have to get their, you know, anyone wanting a smart meter would need to be outside of, have that smart meter located outside of that range. Is that correct? Or the perimeter?
Yes, if by range you mean...
Yes, that's correct. If by range you mean physical distance.
Yes, I do mean the physical distance. And then, you know, are you, again, this is going back to the issue of looking at a wired system. You know, depending on, you know, if I live in the middle of town and in the town of Fairfax, and the town of Fairfax decides to opt out, you know, my meter would be someplace outside of the jurisdiction of the town of Fairfax. Is that what you're looking at? If that's what your proposal, is that what your proposal is saying?
No, I didn't have a specific proposal about wired meters, but I can suppose that technologically the safe distance or the perimeter distance for a wired meter might be different from radio frequency. I'm not a lawyer, I can't speak to the jurisdictional authority of Fairfax to order.
Okay, so you're not, so I'm just trying to get a sense of, as your proposal was submitted, you know, when you say a smart meter outside, you know, outside the perimeter, exactly, you know, where that goes.
What it means is that parties who opt out of smart meters are authorized a safe distance from nearby smart meters, whether they're wired or not.
But if somebody, okay, so you're looking, okay, well, that's one question, is how far distance can a smart meter, if I want a smart meter and it's out, you know, I need to be, you know, and my meter needs to be located outside of the out of some perimeter that may be a certain distance, you know, more than, you know, a certain distance from my home. What's the farthest distance from my home that a smart meter could be located? Is there?
Well, all I suggest is to move the service entrance. Right? I mean, meter panels are located, generally speaking, MDU or single-family residence somewhere near the premise. To suggest that this option would be to move the service entrance itself would be, you know, impossible to generalize across our customer base. You know, for sort of obvious reasons, it would be very expensive to consider moving the entire meter bank panel, say, to some safe zone.
So there's also a physical, you can't go any farther than the transformer. So the farthest you could get away from the house is the transformer, because that's where the load gets. It's just physically impossible to go any farther than transformer. So if the transformer is right next to the unit, that's as far away as you can get.
Okay.
So I have two questions from our listen-only audience. First one is from Susan Brinkman, I believe founder and director of the Center for Electro-Smog Prevention. Her question is it feasible to allow multi-residences where one person wishes to opt out to convert all to opt out? I checked, I believe she's asking whether you can force the other ones to opt out. Any?
So I'll try to answer that. Is we are really looking at this as a customer choice option, and it's up for the customer. And so our plan is to go with the customer record and what they choose.
Great. One more from the online. The County of Lake submits another question, and this is for PG&E. In response to the ALJ statement regarding community opt-out, the County of Lake would like to get a response from PG&E as to the feasibility of allowing municipal entities to opt out in the ordinance not to have smart meters installed within its jurisdiction, in which the ordinance would either allow ratepayers within the municipal entity's jurisdiction to retain his or her smart meter or install a smart meter so long as it is located within his or her private property as a possible exception. Or, and I apologize for the length of this, prohibit the retention or installation of smart meters on property located within the municipal jurisdiction with the method and allocation of costs for the removal of pre-existing installed smart meters to be determined.
I think the bottom line is it's the same answer Ted just gave, which is we don't know how or why it would be a good idea to allow some block of customers to make the decision, taking away the decision making of other blocks of customers. We think it's a customer by customer choice.
Okay, we're going to take one more question and then we're going to take a break. Okay, go ahead, Sharon.
Well, this is a two-part question. One of them is, would you respect homeowners associations if they voted unanimous, or not unanimously, but democratically, within that homeowners association to opt out? Would you respect that? And then the second question is there any published data? Have there been any studies done on what the radiation effects are or the amounts when there are 25 to 50 smart meters all in one bank? Has Silver Springs done any studies on what the radiation levels might be 1 foot away from that bank, where someone could potentially, that could be a residence, that could even be a baby in a crib? It'd be very nice to know what those radiation levels would be, so people could make an educated decision on that.
And we do have a study that's available on our website of the emissions from our meters study.
Of 25 or 50 of them combined?
Including meter banks, and that was also, just by the way, considered in the CCST report done and published earlier this year in January. And again, it always falls well within FCC allowed limits for RF emissions. Your other question about multiple dwelling unit votes, I think again we see it in the same way. We have a customer record. We would expect customer by customer, each of them individually, the ability to make the choice or not.
I can follow.
So San Diego also had our meter tested in banks. It's on our website, and I don't think there is an appreciable difference between meters in banks and meters one by one.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Miller.
She needs the microphone.
And then after that, let's take a break. I'm sure everyone's tired.
My question is two-part. One, the judge had asked, I think the question was, what is the distance of the smart meter poles? How far does it travel? So how far does one meter get away? And the second is a comment, which is in terms of FCC licensing, these meters are licensed individually. They're not licensed in terms of 30 or 40 or even 10 meters at a time. And the fact is that smart meters are categorically excluded from FCC oversight. And I have a letter from FCC admin. Please prove that.
Okay.
Okay,
so the question is, sorry, your question is how range? Okay,
In order
yeah,
for
I mean,
to be safe, how far?
well, no, my question was actually just how far
How far does
does
the pulse
this
travel?
does it need to be moved in order, and still be operational? That was my question. And I believe
So
that was-
I'll defer to Itron on the distance it needs to be from one meter to another meter or to a collector.
Louis Santilli with Itron. The distance is actually determined by some geographic and geometric factors as far as how a signal travels in our propagation based on scatter data. The meters are certified by the FCC for that transmission rate, and the licenses basically give you that. They operate at slightly less than 1 watt, and the distance will be dependent upon several factors around that meter. So free air will be different than meters with block walls in between, with buildings in between, and so on.
Lou, I'm going to put you a little bit on, let's say it's unobstructed. How far do you think you can get a reliable transmission?
Unobstructed reliable transmissions in the 1,200 feet range.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a break now. Why don't we come back and... Okay, so you can ask when you can ask when you come back, but I would like to take a break now. I think everyone's been sitting here since 9:30 and they appreciate stretching their legs. Okay, so we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.
I did just realize that right there.
Get the UL one. And it's
very, very high. And, other countries have the standard
yeah, so we're selling meters all over the world, including Europe.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Okay, everyone. We're going to do one follow-up question that Ms. Sage had and was unable to ask before our break, and then we're going to move forward from there. So, Ms. Sage, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. My question goes back to a comment that Mr. Meadows made. You indicated that PG&E would prefer to install new digital meters as an alternative to smart meters. You indicated that PG&E would rather install new digital meters as a substitute for wireless smart meters as a preference to reinstalling analog. Is that true?
In the some metering with, other than the radio off option, you like to do digital meter. That's right. I think they're more readily available.
Then my question is this, are you able to verify for consumers that the digital meter that you install has no radio frequency wireless that is active? And I'd also like for Mr. Devore to answer that question, please.
We would confirm before we bought and use that meter as the option that there's no radio frequency wireless transmission from the meter.
We would confirm if,
I'm sorry.
Again, if we had an application in place and we were favoring a radio off version, we would work with the customer to certify that that radio was on.
Can I add something to that too? I think there's a false assumption that just because you have an electromechanical meter, you can't have a transmitter in it. There's quite a few electromechanical meters in the United States that have wireless transmitters in them. So I just don't want people to think that just because it's an electromechanical meter, it can't have a radio.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Sage, just clarification. So the question is, if there is a wired digital meter, then that wired digital meter will not have a radio transmitter. Is that the question? No. What is your question? I'm sorry.
My question is, if you have if the utility would prefer to provide a digital meter rather than analog meter as a replacement, can you guarantee that there will be no wireless radio frequency emissions? And I ask this because they are being installed by Edison. The AIRPT 622, for example, is a digital non-smart meter which has nearly continuous transmissions. So the question is, do you have a technology to provide a digital meter substitute to a wireless smart meter which you can guarantee will not operate wirelessly?
Again, I just answered that we have not filed an application. We've not looked at all the different meter types. And our option, if we were to file today, would be to certify that the radio is off.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do, there are two more general topics that I would like to have covered at this point before we go into the specific options. The first one is concerning the level of assistance that should be provided to low-income ratepayers. And this goes into two parts. One is, I know that both PG&E and Mr. Wilner in their options had proposed that there be assistance for low-income ratepayers. For Mr. Wild, you had recommended socialization, that all costs associated with the smart meter opt-out program be socialized. But I'd like to just explore a little bit whether or not you were also considering assistance for low-income ratepayers as part of that. So why don't we start with you first?
Aglin's proposal does not address any special consideration of low-income customers.
Okay, would you be considering then, if it were socialized costs, it would just be considered in the general rate cases, and for rate design purposes, care rates would be calculated including the opt-out?
Yes, the cost would be just another element of those costs allocated in normal cost allocation proceedings.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else with a question on assistance for low-income ratepayers at this point on any of the options? Mr. Wilner.
I just wanted to answer. Thank you. You asked if we suggested a low-income possibility. I believe that was the question.
Yes, well, no, I said, I noted that you did, that you had proposed that along the lines of what the Maine Commission had proposed, and I know you had recommended a discount of 50% for those at the federal level, poverty level, I believe.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
And then 25% discount for those at a, somewhat above, but still, I think it was 100. I'm sorry, I don't have the percentages.
I don't remember
right here,
exactly, but you're correct. It's 50%. I think the next increment was 25%, depending on income. So the answer is yes for low income. And then to supplement the answer, our position is that for anybody that has a medical condition that requires the opt-out, there shouldn't be any cost to them under 453.
Okay, and I know there have been some recommendations for a no-cost opt-out option. We will be exploring that further.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I also wanted to comment about the if there is a health condition.
Okay, there's
that going to be
nothing
later on.
that will not be considered right now.
Not at all.
We're going. Right now, we're considering for any reason or no reason.
Okay.
So, and I do know,
would be a medical condition and under the American Disabilities Act.
Well,
it sounds incredibly problematic. I just want to alert people that.
Okay, in terms of are you saying it in terms of no cost option? Because that will be considered, we will be discussing, what, if there is a no cost option, what are the ramifications?
That's later today?
Yes.
It will be discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. On low income, because I would like to move on.
Yeah. If there is a cost associated with opting out of the smart meter program, how do the utilities and the Public Utilities Commission plan to conform with Utility Code 453B, which prohibits charging extra for medical condition when we know, based on peer-reviewed scientific evidence in the Journal of Neuroscience that now electrosensitivity is a bona fide neurological condition.
Okay, that is rate design. That is outside the scope of this proceeding. Okay, let's move on. What I know, I've received a lot of comments from people and emails about procedures if they wish to delay installation of a smart meter. And what I wanted to do is just go through and ask each of the utilities to please explain what your procedures are. And I guess we'll start with Mr. Devore. You're closest to me.
I always forget to turn that on, I'm sorry. Up until the point of about a month ago, we have installed about 3 million of 5 million meters. We have had what we call refusal for opt-out of about 190 customers. And that is based on them expressing under no conditions do I want this meter installed, and we have not installed those meters. We do not in any way, shape, or form ask an installer to force a meter upon the customer. And so they requested that. That is at the point of installation. So we've basically had a customer refusal process. We're currently enhancing that process on a forward prospective basis to have more of a delay list or more of a customer choice based on the outcome of these proceedings. So that is our forward-looking prospect at this point. And so, again, we've been tracking those customers that have had a refusal of the meter. It's been very few. And we have not installed those meters and been able to work with our deployment installation team to ensure that that doesn't happen. The process of being able to enhance that is to ensure once a customer expresses their interest in delaying or not getting a meter installed, that we ensure all the way to the field level, to our deployment, that that is processed properly. And so we have a few more steps in that process. We expect that to be in place very shortly.
Okay, thank you. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to go down through everyone.
But I'd like to clarify, is there a phone number that a customer could call now to be put on that delay list?
Customer can, through our call center, through our courts call center, through email, or through letters, can request.
Okay. I want to ask, and with all due respect, I want to ask for equal time in terms of what a customer has experienced when they called SCE. Forward comment. I'd like permission to read it. SCE basically told us there was nothing they could do to help us. My husband has emailed every executive at SCE and the CPUC, and nobody will reply back. I even got a letter from my doctor about my EMF sensitivities, and SCE said that they have no contingency plan for people with EMF sensitivities or health problems that are caused by the smart meters. And this is this woman's experience, and this is one of many comments that I received. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure when that might happen, but we have a commitment from SCE, is that correct? That on a going forward basis, anybody who does wish to be put on a delay list will be done, that will happen. Okay, and
phone number. Yeah.
Phone number, okay. Is that currently on your website, or?
We can get that phone number for you.
Okay, no. Is it on your website though?
Well, our phone number is our main call center phone number.
And what is it?
I don't have it by memory. It's on our website.
You don't have it either. Okay, we will find out. During the break, I will find out what their customer call number is. I will give it to you. Okay, Mr. Meadows.
And thank you. Not to show what my friend Ken, but my phone number is 1-877-743-7378. PG&E has a well-published, well-established deferral list phone number and process. When we send out the installation lookout letters, it's referenced in that letter, giving customers the opportunity to call and defer us. We've also made outbound calls ourselves to many communities to ask them directly or give them an opportunity directly to put themselves on deferral list. So we do have a well-established process at PG&E.
Thank you. And Mr. Petersilia.
We are not yet deploying and won't be starting until October of next year. We have received a handful of calls from customers, and we have noted in their customer files that they've expressed this concern, and we're assuming by the time we get out in the field there'll be some clarity on how we handle it.
Thank you. And Mr. Reguly.
Yeah, so SDG&E is about 98% complete. I think we have those refusals are in and around 100. First thing that we try to do when a customer calls is we try to understand what their concern is, and it can be multiple reasons. We then try to work with that customer to allay those concerns, and then after that, if they still do not want a meter installed, they go on our delay list.
Okay, Marcia is going to read the first question, and we'll go from there.
County of Lake has a question for all the utilities. Which opt-out option? So the retention of existing electromechanical meters or the digital meter with the radio transmission removed? Which of those opt-out options offers the lowest cost for care and fairer customers?
So I'll start from PG&E. The lowest cost in our proposal and in our estimation is the radio off proposal with the care discount we suggested.
And do you know how much it will be?
I do. Our proposal for care customers would be, we have a couple of options, but $105 up front and $16 a month, or alternatively $215 up front for an $11 a month monthly charge.
Is that per meter?
No, the question has not been answered yet. I want all the utilities to answer.
This is Ken Devore from Southern California Edison. We do not have an application in place, so we have not created any cost at this time.
To regulate SDG&E, we looked at ranges, and it really is dependent on the range, but within a couple dollars, we see all three of them about the same for both an upfront cost and also a monthly cost. And we're talking about radio off, analog, and solid state, correct?
Yeah. We have not done any cost estimates yet.
Okay, go ahead, over there, and then Mr. Roberts, I think.
Our organization fields calls and questions and comments from ratepayers throughout the state of California. We've had hundreds of people reporting the results from contacting various utilities. PG&E specifically, using the 877 number, the numbers, the customer's information is recorded. Sometimes not respected. Sometimes the smart meter has been installed at these residences, and PG refuses to remove that, even though they admit that they made a mistake. With regards to SoCal Gas, SDG&E, and SCE, the reports that we've had have been consistent to this date, and that is that people call up, request an opt-out, request a delay, request that they do not want a smart meter, and they are told that they have to, that they will be disconnected, and that they will have the police come and enforce the installation. That is consistently what we've been hearing. So are the utility representatives here today saying that that is not the case and that has not been happening, or are they saying that from this point forward that they will actually respect people not wanting these devices on their homes?
So for SDG&E, if you are willing to share those customers' names with us, we will definitely look into it. And what you're talking about, us saying that we will shut off the power and call the police, that's untrue, and that is not the way we treat customers.
For PG&E, it's mostly the same answer. We do all we can to honor our deferral list. We ask, no questions asked deferral list to go on it. Unfortunately, inadvertently, if orders have been issued and it wasn't timely enough to know that they're on the deferral list, there have been occasionally a few installed, but we have tried to make that right with customers, and same offer from Ted. If there's any customers that believe they were installed despite their being on the deferral list, I have some colleagues with me today. We'll take your name and number and get that right.
For Edison, we work hard on every customer relationship. I'd be happy to if you were to share the names with us. customers would be willing for us to contact them, follow through, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, Mr. Roberts?
Yes, we've also had anecdotal information that there's differences in the delay lists. And if you go to each website, you'll see it's treated completely different. I think it's important going forward, since in one of the PUCs a comment was made that there is a delay list for every utility, that we make sure that there is a delay list for every utility. We need to know how the customer is notified about that list, how easy it is for them to access the list, and how long installation will be delayed once they've made that request. Because it seems there is a presumption that customers now who want to opt out can do so temporarily if they haven't already got a meter. And I think the timeliness of this proceeding